The next morning, Clara woke to the soft light of dawn spilling through the barn cracks. The familiar sounds of the farm greeted her, the low murmur of goats, the faint clucking of chickens, and the distant rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. Her daughters were still asleep, wrapped snugly in the blankets Mr. Thompson had provided, their small chests rising and falling with steady, peaceful breaths. For a moment, Clara just watched them, feeling a warmth in her chest that she hadn't felt in months. The barn, once a simple structure of wood and hay, had become a sanctuary, a place of safety, care and hope. Mr. Thompson appeared quietly, holding a small basket of fresh bread, eggs, and a few vegetables from the garden. He placed it near the girls and whispered, "Breakfast is ready." I didn't want to wake them too abruptly. Clara nodded gratefully, a soft smile tugging at her lips. The simple act of care, the patience to let her daughters awaken naturally, filled her with appreciation. She felt for the first time in a long time that she could breathe without constant worry pressing on her chest. Anna stirred first, blinking sleepily as the aroma of breakfast reached her nose. Lila followed, yawning and stretching, her tiny hands clutching the blankets as if they were a treasure. The girls' eyes brightened when they saw the food, and Lila squealed softly in delight. Clara helped them sit up, giving each a portion and smiling as they eagerly began to eat. Their laughter and soft chatter filled the barn, mingling with the gentle sounds of the farm outside. It was a simple, ordinary moment, yet to Clara, it felt extraordinary. A reminder that life could still hold moments of joy and normalcy even in difficult times. After breakfast, Clara and her daughters helped Mr. Thompson with small tasks around the barn. They gathered eggs from the chickens, helped carry fresh vegetables from the garden, and even swept the barn floor. It was hard work, but it was purposeful, and the girls took pride in their contributions. Clara watched them, feeling a quiet sense of accomplishment. She realized that teaching her daughters small responsibilities, even in a humble setting, was giving them a sense of stability and confidence that hardship had often denied them. As the morning passed, Clara spoke with Mr. Thompson about the days ahead. "I don't know how long we can stay," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "I want to find work somewhere safe for us, but I don't know where to start." Mr. Thompson nodded, understanding her concerns. "We can figure it out together," he said. "There are people in town who help families like yours. We can visit them tomorrow. For now, take today to rest, to prepare, and to be with your daughters. That is just as important." Clara felt a surge of relief at his words. She had been carrying the burden of survival alone for so long that the idea of sharing it, even partially, was overwhelming yet comforting. She knew that the road ahead would still have challenges, but having a guide, a patient and understanding presence, made it seem possible. She looked at Anna and Lila, who were playing quietly with a small wooden horse and a ball of hay, and felt hope rise in her heart. By afternoon, Clara and Mr. Thompson sat together in a quiet corner of the barn. The girls were napping, exhausted from the morning's activity. Clara's hands trembled slightly as she held a small piece of bread, thinking about the uncertainty of the future. Mr. Thompson noticed and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've done remarkably well," he said softly. "You've kept your daughters safe through everything. And now with a little guidance you can find more stability. You don't have to do this alone." Clara's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not of despair. They were tears of gratitude and relief. She nodded, feeling the weight of isolation she had carried for so long begin to lift. She realized that accepting help was not a sign of weakness. It was a necessary step toward survival and growth. For her daughters, it meant safety, nourishment, and the chance to experience childhood in a way they had been denied for months. Later, as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the barn, Mr. Thompson suggested a short walk outside. Clara helped her daughters don their coats, the warmth of the garments a reminder of the generosity that had been shown to them. They stepped out into the sunlight, feeling the soft earth beneath their feet. The farm stretched before them, modest but alive, filled with small wonders. Birds hopping in the grass, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves, and the comforting sounds of animals nearby. As they walked, Clara spoke to her daughters about the importance of kindness, of noticing when someone needs help, and of being grateful for the simple gifts of life. Anna listened intently, her serious eyes reflecting understanding, while Lila skipped ahead, giggling and turning back to look at her mother with trust and affection. Clara felt a warmth in her chest. knowing that these small lessons, combined with the safety and kindness she had received, would stay with her daughters for years to come. After their walk, they returned to the barn for a quiet evening. Mr. Thompson prepared a simple dinner, allowing Clara to assist and learn some small skills for preparing food and managing the household. The girls helped in their small ways, carrying utensils and arranging plates, their laughter and chatter filling the barn with life. Clara realized that this sense of routine of small accomplishments was as valuable as food and shelter. It gave her daughters confidence, stability, and a feeling of normalcy that had been absent for so long. As night fell, Clara tucked her daughters into the blankets, holding them close and feeling their warmth. She whispered softly, "We will be okay. We have a chance now and we will take it together." Anna murmured sleepily, "I like it here, Mama." And Lila mumbled in agreement, snuggling closer. Clara kissed their foreheads, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the small sanctuary that had given them so much. Not just food and shelter, but trust, hope, and the reminder that human kindness still existed. Mr. Thompson, standing quietly nearby, watched them with satisfaction. He understood that his small acts, providing warmth, food, guidance, and a listening ear, had created a lasting impact. The family had been given a moment of peace, a foundation on which to rebuild, and a reminder that even in difficult times, compassion and patience could change lives. Before retiring for the night, Clara and Mr. Thompson spoke quietly about the future. He suggested a plan to connect her with supportive people in the town, who could help her find work and more permanent stability. Clara felt a mixture of nervousness and hope. She knew that the days ahead would require courage and effort, but for the first time in months she felt ready. With guidance, support, and her daughters by her side, she believed she could face whatever challenges awaited. As the barn settled into quiet for the night, Clara sat beside her daughters, holding them close and reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. They had been hungry, scared, and alone. Yet in a single day they had found safety, nourishment, and kindness. She understood that life would not always be easy, but she also realized that small acts of compassion could change the course of a life. Tonight she allowed herself to rest fully, knowing that they were protected and cared for. And as sleep gently took hold of the three of them, Clara felt a quiet determination take root. She would honor the trust and generosity she had received by moving forward, by finding work, by keeping her daughters safe, and by spreading kindness in whatever way she could. She whispered a silent promise to herself that one day she would help someone else as she had been helped, continuing the chain of human compassion that had given her family hope. Outside, the stars shone brightly, casting a soft light over the barn and the fields beyond. The wind carried the faint scent of hay and earth, a reminder of the life that continued, persistent and enduring. Inside, a mother and her daughters slept peacefully, their hearts lighter, their bellies full, and their spirits lifted. They had endured hardship, yes, but in this barn, with the quiet care of a kind stranger, they had found a new beginning. The barn had become more than a structure of wood and hay. It was now a place of trust, of hope, and of possibility. And as Clara held her daughters close, she realized that while the past had been difficult, the future held promise. With courage, patience, and the support of those willing to offer kindness, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. And so, as night fully settled over the farm, Clara and her daughters rested, protected, and nourished, with a quiet understanding that life could change in small, meaningful ways, and that sometimes a single act of compassion could create a lasting ripple of hope that carried far beyond the walls of a simple barn. By mid-afternoon, the barn had become a quiet refuge from the outside world. Sunlight streamed through the cracks in the wooden walls, casting soft patterns on the floor and illuminating the hay that cushioned the girls as they played. Clara watched Anna and Lila with a mix of relief and wonder. It was rare to see her daughters laugh so freely, without the weight of hunger or fear pressing down on them. Their tiny giggles and whispered conversations filled the barn with life, breaking the silence that had followed them for so many long weeks. Mr. Thompson moved quietly around them, careful not to interrupt their joy. He had prepared a small area where they could play safely, with soft hay underfoot and enough space for the girls to explore without danger. He also had a few simple wooden toys, left over from previous seasons, which he had set aside for moments like this. Lila was particularly fascinated by a small wooden horse, spinning it in her hands and making soft clopping noises as she pretended it galloped across the barn floor. Anna, more thoughtful, arranged the hay into a little house for her sister, carefully stacking pieces and smoothing them with her small hands. Clara allowed herself to breathe deeply, enjoying the simple scene. The constant anxiety of the past months had left her tense and weary, but here, in this moment, she felt a small spark of peace. She had feared that her daughter's innocence and joy had been lost to hardship, but seeing them play so lightheartedly reminded her that children could adapt and find happiness even in the hardest circumstances. Mr. Thompson approached Clara quietly and placed a cup of water and a small slice of bread beside her. "You should eat too," he said softly. "It's easy to forget yourself when you are caring for them, but you need your strength as well." Clara hesitated for a moment. Eating while her daughters were occupied seemed strange, almost indulgent, but she trusted him. She picked up the bread and took a small bite, feeling the nourishment strengthen her body and calm her mind. For the first time in days, she felt grounded, able to think clearly about the days ahead. Once she had eaten, Clara leaned back and watched her daughters. Anna had now begun to ask questions about the barn and the farm beyond it. "Where do the animals sleep?" she asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Do you have chickens and cows?" Lila chimed in. "Can we see them?" Clara smiled softly, realizing that her daughter's curiosity had returned, the natural wonder of children that had been stifled by hunger and fear. Mr. Thompson guided them gently through the barn, showing them where he kept the chickens and the small pen for goats. He spoke simply and patiently, answering Anna's questions and encouraging Lila to observe quietly. He allowed them to touch the animals, showing them how to be careful and gentle. The girls were delighted, their small hands stroking the soft feathers of the hens and patting the gentle goats. Clara watched, heart swelling with gratitude as her daughters laughed and learned. It was a lesson in trust and care, something she had feared they might never experience. After exploring the animals, they returned to the barn. Clara sat on the hay with her daughters beside her. She felt a deep sense of connection, not only with them but also with Mr. Thompson. His calm presence, his patient guidance, and his quiet acts of kindness had created a sense of safety she had not known in months. She realized that human compassion, when genuine, could restore hope even in the darkest circumstances. "Clara," Mr. Thompson began softly, "you don't have to struggle alone. If you need help finding food or a place to stay, I can show you a few people in the town who can help. They're kind like me and they understand what it's like to face hard times." Clara's heart tightened. Asking for help had always been difficult for her. She had been taught to rely on herself, to bear her burdens quietly. But now, seeing the kindness in Mr. Thompson's eyes, she understood that accepting help did not diminish her strength. She nodded slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. I would like that," she said. "I want my daughters to have a chance at something better. I want to give them stability, even if it's just for a little while." Mr. Thompson smiled gently, understanding the weight of her words. "We'll take it one step at a time," he said. "No rush, no pressure. Just small steps that lead to safety and hope." The girls, sensing the quiet conversation between their mother and Mr. Thompson, snuggled closer. Lila rested her head on Clara's lap, and Anna leaned against her side. Clara felt their warmth and trust, and it strengthened her resolve. She realized that despite all the hardship, she had survived, and she had her daughters to fight for. This barn, this small haven, was a reminder that she was not entirely alone. As the afternoon progressed, Mr. Thompson showed Clara a small garden behind the barn. It was modest, with rows of vegetables growing in neat patches, but it was enough to provide a small supplement to their meals. "You can take some of this if you need it," he said. "It's yours while you're here." Clara's eyes filled with tears at his generosity. She carefully selected a few vegetables, thinking of ways to prepare simple meals for her daughters. Even the small act of choosing food for them gave her a sense of empowerment she hadn't felt in months. They returned to the barn, carrying the fresh vegetables. Clara began to wash them in the small basin Mr. Thompson provided, while he assisted gently, showing her simple ways to prepare them. The girls watched, fascinated, learning from their mother and Mr. Thompson. Clara realized that teaching them small skills, even in these humble circumstances, was part of nurturing their sense of normalcy and independence. After the work in the garden, They all returned to the hay. Clara fed the girls small pieces of bread and vegetables while Mr. Thompson prepared a larger loaf for later. The barn was filled with the quiet rhythm of life, chewing, laughing, and soft conversation. Clara began to speak to her daughters, explaining the importance of caring for each other, of being gentle with the animals, and of respecting the kindness of others. The girls listened intently, absorbing her words with wide eyes. As the day began to fade into early evening, Clara realized that this small oasis had given her something she had long forgotten: hope. The kindness of Mr. Thompson, the laughter of her daughters, and the safety of the barn had created a fragile but growing sense of possibility. She understood that survival was not just about finding food, but about restoring dignity, trust, and emotional well-being. Mr. Thompson finally spoke, his voice calm and steady. "You've done so much already," he said. "You've kept them alive, safe, and cared for them through difficult times. And now, with a little help, you can take the next steps to make life easier. I will stay nearby and help however I can." Clara felt a deep gratitude rise within her. Words were not enough, but she nodded, knowing that his presence, guidance, and patience were gifts beyond measure. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the barn glowed with a warm, soft light. Clara tucked her daughters under the blankets, holding them close. Anna whispered softly, "Thank you, Mama." And Lila hummed a small tune as she rested. Clara kissed their foreheads, feeling an unfamiliar lightness in her chest. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to believe that tomorrow could be better, that they could face the future together with hope and strength. Mr. Thompson stood quietly nearby, watching over them. He understood that the bonds being formed today, the trust, the sense of safety, and the small joys, would carry Clara and her daughters forward. The barn, once just a simple structure, had become a place of transformation. It had given them warmth, nourishment, protection, and most importantly, hope. As night fell and the stars appeared above, Clara felt a deep sense of peace. She knew that challenges still lay ahead, but for now they had found shelter, care, and a reminder of the goodness that still existed in the world. And as her daughters drifted to sleep once more, Clara whispered a silent promise to herself. She would protect them, cherish these moments, and carry the kindness she had received forward, not just for them, but for herself and the world around them. Morning came slowly, with the first pale light slipping through the cracks in the barn walls. The soft warmth of the sun touched the hay and wooden beams, giving the space a gentle glow. Clara stirred first, blinking against the weak light. Her daughters, still asleep under the blankets, were peaceful and quiet, their small bodies curled closely to one another. Clara felt a mixture of relief and gratitude as she looked at them. Last night had been a quiet miracle, a night of safety and comfort that they had not experienced in a long time. She rose carefully, trying not to wake the girls, and stretched her stiff muscles. The barn felt almost alive in the soft morning light, the smell of hay and earth comforting in a way she hadn't realized she had missed. Outside, she could hear the faint sounds of the farm, the crowing of a rooster, the low murmur of distant animals, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the morning breeze. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to imagine a day without fear, a day where her daughters could simply be children and she could simply be a mother. Mr. Thompson appeared quietly from behind a stack of hay, carrying a small basket. He moved with care, not startling her, and offered a gentle smile. "Good morning," he said softly. "I brought some breakfast for you and the girls. Nothing fancy, but it will fill your bellies." Clara nodded, feeling a lump rise in her throat. She tried to speak, but words failed her. She simply smiled, a small gesture that conveyed more than she could say. He placed the basket on a clean section of floor and opened it to reveal fresh bread, some cheese, and a few pieces of fruit that were not bruised or rotten. Anna and Lila stirred as the smells reached them, blinking sleepily and yawning. Their eyes brightened when they saw the food, and little Lila squealed softly in delight. Clara helped them sit up and distributed the food, making sure each girl had something she could eat. The simple act of eating, without fear or shame, brought a quiet joy to Clara's heart. As they ate, Clara took a moment to observe Mr. Thompson. He did not rush, did not make them feel small or guilty for their hunger. He simply waited, offering what he could, allowing them to eat and rest in peace. Clara's mind wandered back to the hard days before this moment, the endless searching for food, the long nights of worry, and the constant feeling of being alone. She had learned to survive, yes, but survival had often come at the cost of her dignity and the innocence of her daughters. Here in this simple barn, those costs felt slightly lighter. After breakfast, the girls finished their food quickly, chattering softly between bites. Anna's eyes sparkled with curiosity, asking small questions about the barn, the animals, and the man who had given them shelter. Lila giggled at a small stray beam of sunlight that danced across the hay, her small hands reaching to touch it. Clara smiled at their innocence, feeling her heart swell with a mixture of pride and relief. For the first time in weeks, her daughters were safe, happy even, and that was a gift she could not put into words. Mr. Thompson watched quietly, understanding that this moment was important. He did not force conversation, did not press for details about their past or their troubles. Instead, he waited until Clara was ready to speak, offering patience and space. Finally, Clara took a deep breath, realizing that she could share a little of her story, not as a plea for help, but as an expression of trust. "My name is Clara," she began softly, her voice steady but quiet. "These are my daughters, Anna and Lila. We've been struggling for some time now. We lost our home a few months ago, and since then it has been hard to find enough food, enough safety, enough hope." She paused, looking down at her daughters. They were listening, their eyes wide, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "I've done my best to keep them safe, to keep them fed, but some days it feels impossible." Mr. Thompson nodded gently, listening without interruption. He could see the strength in her, even in the weariness of her eyes. He understood that she had carried a heavy burden alone, and he respected her courage. "You've done more than you realize," he said finally. "Surviving, protecting them, keeping them together, that is not easy. And yet here you are. That is strength." Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. It was strange but comforting to hear someone acknowledge the effort she had given silently, day after day, without recognition. The girls, sensing the calm in the barn, sat closer to their mother. Anna reached out and took Clara's hand, holding it tightly. Lila curled against her mother's side, resting her head on Clara's shoulder. The physical closeness of her daughters reassured Clara in ways words could not. She realized that even in the darkest times, small moments of safety, care, and human connection could bring light. Mr. Thompson offered a soft smile, watching the quiet scene. "You don't have to do everything alone," he said. "Sometimes letting someone help you doesn't make you weak. It makes it possible for you to keep going, to keep caring for those you love." Clara felt the weight of those words, realizing that accepting help was not a sign of failure, but a way to survive and protect her children. She nodded slowly, her eyes glistening with gratitude. The morning continued quietly, filled with small gestures of care. Mr. Thompson showed Clara and her daughters around the barn, pointing out where they could rest, where they could wash up with the water he had brought, and where they could safely keep their belongings for the time being. He did not intrude, did not demand anything in return. He simply provided, allowing them to settle and feel comfortable. Clara felt a sense of peace growing inside her, one that she had not felt in a long time. Anna's curiosity led her to explore the hayloft, carefully climbing the ladder with Clara's watchful eye. She looked down at her mother and sister, smiling with pride at her own bravery. Lila followed, toddling carefully, her mother's hand ready to catch her if needed. Clara felt her heart lift at their laughter and energy. For so long, fear and hunger had overshadowed their days. But now, even for a short while, they could experience the joy of simple play and exploration. Afterward, they returned to the ground, sitting on the soft hay together. Mr. Thompson brought out a small piece of cloth and some water, showing them how they could wash their hands and faces. The girls giggled at the novelty, and Clara felt a quiet sense of pride as she helped them clean up. For the first time in weeks, they looked presentable, their small faces brightened by the simple act of washing. Clara realized that this barn, this moment, was more than just a shelter from the cold and hunger. It was a place where trust could grow, where hope could begin to return, where her daughters could feel safe and loved, even if temporarily. She thought of the months of struggle, of endless searching and constant fear, and felt a quiet determination. She would find a way forward. She would do everything she could to repay the kindness shown to them, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude and the desire to continue the chain of care and compassion. By late morning, the barn had become a small sanctuary. Sunlight filled the space. The hay smelled sweet and fresh, and the soft sounds of life, Anna and Lila's laughter, the gentle rustle of blankets, the distant animals outside, created a sense of peace. Clara watched her daughters, feeling a connection to the world that had been missing for so long. She knew that challenges still lay ahead, but she also knew that moments like this, filled with kindness, safety, and understanding, could give her the strength to face them. Mr. Thompson, seeing the subtle shift in Clara's demeanor, felt a quiet satisfaction. He knew that trust, once established, could grow quickly, and that even small acts of care could have a lasting impact. He continued to offer support quietly, more food, more water, and gentle guidance on using the barn safely, but never overstepped. His presence was steady and calm, a silent reminder that sometimes the simplest actions, offering a coat, a meal, or a kind word, could change lives in profound ways. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Clara allowed herself a small smile, feeling a spark of hope that had been missing for so long. She looked at Anna and Lila, their eyes bright, their laughter light and free, and realized that even in the hardest times, human kindness could restore a sense of dignity and strength. She felt a deep, quiet gratitude for Mr. Thompson, who had given them not only food and shelter but also trust and hope. By midday, Clara and her daughters had settled into a gentle rhythm. They explored the barn, helped with small tasks, and learned to move about safely under Mr. Thompson's quiet guidance. The barn had become more than just a physical shelter. It was now a place of connection, care, and small miracles, and Clara knew that this experience, this simple act of human compassion, would stay with her forever, guiding her through the challenges still to come. The barn smelled of fresh hay and earth, a scent that seemed strange yet comforting to Clara and her daughters. The warmth of the man's coat around her shoulders helped her forget for a moment the chill of the evening air outside. Anna and Lila finished the bread he had given them, licking their fingers with quiet delight. Lila's eyes sparkled as she looked around the barn, her small face filled with curiosity and wonder. Clara, meanwhile, watched her daughters carefully, noting the way Anna's serious eyes softened as she explored the space, and how Lila's laughter, though small, brought a sense of life back into the quiet barn. The man moved with ease among them, careful not to disturb their comfort. He went over to a corner where some old blankets were folded neatly. He picked them up and returned to the mother and her daughters. "Here," he said, his voice calm and gentle. "This will keep you warm. You can spread them over yourselves and rest for a while." Clara hesitated, feeling the warmth of the blankets in her hands. She had seen few comforts in recent weeks, and holding the thick fabric made her feel a strange mixture of relief and disbelief. She nodded silently, her throat tight with emotion. The girls immediately jumped at the blankets, pulling and tugging to find the comfiest spots. Lila curled up against her mother's side, sighing in satisfaction, while Anna carefully adjusted the blanket over herself, glancing at her mother for approval. Clara smiled softly, brushing Anna's hair back from her forehead. "There," she whispered. "That's better." The simple act of warmth and safety was enough to ease some of the tension that had been building in all of them for days. The man, whose name Clara learned was Mr. Thompson, went quietly about the barn, making small adjustments to improve their comfort. He placed a small stool nearby, carrying a clean jug of water and an extra loaf of bread. Clara watched him, feeling a deep sense of gratitude mixed with disbelief. It was rare to find someone who offered help without expecting anything in return, and she silently promised herself to remember his kindness. "Thank you," she said again, her voice stronger now. I don't know how to repay you." Mr. Thompson shook his head gently. "There's no need to repay me," he said. "You've had a hard day, and sometimes helping someone is enough. That's all." Clara nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. Words could hardly express her gratitude, but she knew her actions, keeping her daughters safe and resting, were the only response needed for now. Anna and Lila had started to explore the barn more freely. Anna's eyes lingered on a stack of hay, imagining it as a soft bed for herself and her sister. Lila toddled toward a pile of old tools, fascinated by the shapes and textures, her small hands reaching out to touch everything carefully. Clara allowed them to wander, keeping a watchful eye but resisting the urge to hover too closely. The barn felt like a new world to the girls, a safe place where their curiosity could bloom without fear. Mr. Thompson sat on a nearby crate, quietly observing them. He could see the tension in Clara's shoulders, the careful way she moved, always ready to protect her children. He understood her instinct to guard them fiercely, and he respected it. He didn't interrupt or question her. Instead, he waited, knowing that trust could not be forced. It had to grow slowly in its own time through small gestures and consistent care. After a few moments of quiet, he spoke again, gently breaking the silence. "You must be tired," he said. "It's been a long day for all of you. You should rest while you can." Clara nodded, glancing at her daughters who were already curling up under the blankets. "Yes," she whispered. "Thank you." She leaned back against the wall of the barn, letting herself relax slightly, though her mind still raced with worries. The girls soon fell asleep, their breathing slow and even. Clara sat beside them, holding her own blanket tightly around her shoulders. For the first time in days, perhaps weeks, she allowed herself a moment of peace. The warmth of the barn, the simple kindness of Mr. Thompson, and the soft sound of her daughter's breathing created a sense of security she hadn't felt in a long time. Mr. Thompson moved quietly once more, making sure the girls were comfortable and that the barn was safe. He checked the windows and doors, ensuring that the wind wouldn't disturb them, and that the night would pass quietly. Then he returned to Clara, offering her a chair and a small cup of water. "Here," he said softly. "Drink this. You must take care of yourself too." Clara took the cup with shaking hands, drinking slowly. The water was cool and refreshing, a small reminder that she was still alive and still able to care for her daughters. I don't know how to thank you enough," Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been on my own for so long. It's hard to ask for help." Mr. Thompson smiled gently, his eyes kind. "Asking for help doesn't make you weak," he said. "It makes you strong. You've done your best for your daughters, and that's all anyone can ask." His words touched Clara deeply, filling her with a quiet hope she hadn't felt in a long time. The night continued quietly, the barn bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun through the gaps in the wooden walls. Clara watched her daughters sleep, their small faces peaceful and relaxed. She thought about the days ahead and the challenges she would face, but for now, she allowed herself to rest. Mr. Thompson continued his work in the background, bringing small comforts and ensuring they had everything they needed. His presence was steady and calm, a silent promise of safety. After a while, Clara began to speak softly to her daughters, telling them stories of better days and brighter times. Anna stirred slightly but didn't wake fully, listening with half-closed eyes. Lila snuggled closer to her mother, her small hands clutching the blanket tightly. Clara's stories were simple and gentle, filled with hope and reassurance. She spoke of fields full of flowers, of warm sunlight and laughter, of days when hunger would not touch them. The girls' breathing grew steady and calm, and Clara felt a small smile tug at her lips. Mr. Thompson watched quietly from a distance, giving them space but staying close enough to respond if needed. He understood that this night was important, not just for food or warmth, but for trust. Clara needed to feel that someone cared, that she could let her guard down even for a short while. And the girls needed to feel safe to laugh and play without fear. The small gestures, food, blankets, water, warmth, were enough to create that sense of safety. Hours passed quietly. The wind outside rustled through the fields, but inside the barn time seemed to slow. Clara leaned back, her mind wandering for a moment, thinking of the future. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight at least they were safe. She felt a deep gratitude for the man who had offered them shelter. Not because he wanted anything in return, but because he saw their need and acted. Eventually, the girls stirred again, waking slowly as the barn grew darker. Clara helped them sit up and adjust the blankets around themselves. Mr. Thompson returned with more water and a few small biscuits he had set aside. The girls ate quietly, their eyes brightening with each bite. Clara felt a renewed sense of strength as she watched them. She realized that even small acts of kindness could change everything, bringing hope and comfort in moments of despair. By the time the moon rose high in the sky, Clara and her daughters were finally settled and comfortable. The barn was quiet once more, filled with the soft sounds of breathing and the occasional rustle of blankets. Clara sat back, holding her daughters close, and allowed herself to relax fully for the first time in weeks. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she also knew that tonight they had found safety, warmth, and a reminder that kindness still existed in the world. Mr. Thompson remained nearby, a quiet guardian in the shadows, watching over them without intrusion. His gentle presence allowed Clara to rest, and his small gestures of care, coats, blankets, food, water, spoke more than words ever could. In the stillness of the barn, surrounded by the peaceful sounds of her children sleeping, Clara felt a small but powerful sense of hope, a feeling she hadn't dared to experience in a long time. And as the night continued, the barn became more than just a shelter. It became a place of trust, of quiet connection, and of small miracles. Clara knew that tomorrow might bring new challenges, but tonight, they had found comfort, and that was enough to give her the strength to face the future. The sun was sinking low behind the distant hills, casting long shadows across the dry, dusty fields. A soft wind whispered through the sparse grass, carrying the faint smell of earth and hay. Near the edge of a small, weathered barn, a woman crouched beside her two young daughters. Their hands were sticky and smudged with dirt, and their stomachs gurgled with hunger. The three of them huddled together, trying to make the best of a meager find. A few apples, bruised and rotting, fallen from a tree long ago. The mother, whose name was Clara, watched her daughters carefully. The older girl, Anna, had hair tangled in small knots and eyes too serious for her young age.
She held a half-rotten apple and hesitated before taking a bite.
The younger one, little Lila, was only 5, with soft curls bouncing as she tried to gnaw the brown spots off another apple. Clara's heart ached, seeing them eat fruit that would normally be discarded, but she knew they had no choice. Food was scarce, and the days of wandering from one field to another, from one abandoned corner of town to another, had taken their toll. Clara looked around cautiously. The barn was old but sturdy, its red paint faded and peeling. She had noticed it earlier while searching for anything edible, but she hadn't dared approach. It seemed empty, and the thought of asking for help made her uneasy. She had learned over the years to rely on herself and to avoid strangers, no matter how kind they might appear. But today, hunger and weariness pressed heavily on her. She had to provide for Anna and Lila, even if it meant taking a small risk. The girls whispered softly to one another, their small voices barely audible above the gentle wind. Anna's lips trembled as she tried to smile, showing courage she didn't fully feel. Lila looked up at her mother with wide, innocent eyes, her tiny hands clutching the bruised apple as though it were a precious treasure. Clara forced herself to smile back, though her mind was crowded with worry. How long could they survive like this? How long before hunger weakened them further? She pushed the questions aside and focused on the present, on keeping her children alive for another day. A shadow shifted near the edge of the field and Clara froze. She glanced up, her heart pounding. From behind the barn a man emerged, tall and sturdy, his boots crunching on the dry grass. His face was calm, not threatening, but Clara's instincts urged caution. She tightened her hold on Lila, moving slightly in front of the younger girl. Anna, sensing her mother's tension, clutched her own apple closer, ready to retreat if needed. The man stopped a few steps away, tipping his hat slightly in greeting. He didn't speak at first. He simply observed them, his eyes gentle and curious. He was a farmer by appearance, with strong hands and a weathered face that spoke of years spent under the sun. Clara studied him, trying to read his intentions. She had learned to recognize the difference between danger and kindness, though she had rarely experienced the latter. Finally, the man spoke, his voice low and steady. "It looks like you've had a rough day," he said. There was no accusation, no judgment, only observation. Clara's grip on her daughters loosened slightly, though she remained cautious. She shook her head, murmuring softly, We're fine." He nodded slowly, as if understanding more than words could convey. "You don't have to stay out here eating that," he said, gesturing toward the barn. "It's cold and damp, and I can see you've had little to eat." Clara's eyes widened. No one had offered her kindness in a long time. She wanted to trust him, but the years of struggle had taught her to be wary. Still, the hunger in her children's eyes tugged at her heart. She took a deep breath and finally spoke. We can't stay long," she said, her voice soft but firm. "We just need a little shelter." The man nodded again, understanding her hesitation. Without another word, he reached for his coat, a thick, sturdy garment that looked warm and comfortable. Slowly, he removed it and held it out toward Clara. Not in a commanding way, but as an invitation. "Come in," he said gently. "It's safe here. You can rest for a while." Clara's heart raced. She glanced at Anna and Lila, who looked at her with uncertainty mixed with hope. The offer was simple, yet it carried a weight she hadn't felt in months. A chance to let someone care for them, even if only for a short time. She swallowed her fear and nodded, slowly taking a step toward the barn. Anna and Lila followed, their small hands gripping hers tightly as they walked across the dry grass. Inside the barn, the air was still and quiet. Sunlight filtered through the gaps in the wooden walls, casting patterns on the dusty floor. Straw and hay were scattered about, and the scent of animals and earth filled the space. It wasn't a palace nor a home, but it was safe, warm, and dry. Clara felt a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time in days, she could let her children be children, even if only for a little while. The man guided them to a corner of the barn where the sunlight was strongest. He gestured for them to sit, and then he quietly moved to fetch a small loaf of bread he had kept for himself. Clara watched in surprise as he tore it in half and handed portions to Anna and Lila. Their eyes lit up as they took the bread, and Lila giggled softly, a sound that made Clara's heart ache with both joy and sorrow. The girls ate quickly, savoring each bite. The bread was simple, nothing fancy, but to them it was a feast. Clara watched them, her eyes misting with tears. The man said nothing, simply waited until they had eaten their fill. Then he returned with a small jug of water, letting them drink freely. He even offered his coat, draping it over Clara's shoulders to keep her warm. Clara's gratitude was difficult to express in words. She nodded and murmured a quiet, "Thank you," but the man simply smiled as if understanding that words were not needed. There was a calm kindness in his actions, a quiet assurance that they were safe here. For the first time in what felt like forever, Clara allowed herself to breathe, to feel a sense of relief and trust. Outside, the wind continued to blow, carrying the sound of distant birds and the faint rustle of trees. Inside the barn, however, a small sense of peace settled over the three of them. The girls leaned against their mother, their bellies full and their eyes heavy with sleep. Clara sat beside them, holding them close, feeling warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. The man moved quietly around the barn, making small adjustments to ensure their comfort. He didn't ask questions, didn't press for details. He simply provided care, allowing them to rest without worry. Clara watched him, silently realizing that true kindness didn't always need words. It was shown in actions, in the simple offering of safety and food when it was most needed. As the sun dipped further below the horizon, casting the barn in shades of gold and orange, Clara felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this day, which had begun with hunger and fear, could end with something different, something gentle, something human. She allowed herself a small smile, brushing her fingers through Anna's hair and smoothing Lila's curls. They were safe, if only for a little while, and that was enough for now. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the promise of another day. Inside, a mother and her two daughters rested, their bellies full and their hearts lighter. And nearby, a man who had once been a stranger stood quietly, knowing that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could change lives in ways that words never could. For Clara, this moment in the barn was not just shelter from the cold. It was a reminder that hope could exist even in the hardest times, that human compassion could appear when it was needed most. And as Anna and Lila drifted into sleep, Clara held them close, feeling the warmth of the coat around her shoulders, and whispered a silent prayer of gratitude for the stranger who had shown them that even in the hardest moments, there was still kindness in the world.